Come in. Come into the place which we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and your strengths, your fears and anxieties, your loves and hopes. For here you need not hide nor pretend or to be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where we can touch and be touched, heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, compassion is expected. Come into this place. Together, we make it a holy place. Before we light our chalice, you may want to light a candle for whatever personal reason you might have. Taking time during the morning assemblies to do this simple yet significant act is important, and it's probably the only place during our week where we can have it happen. And if the prelude brings back memories of Frank Sinatra, you might like to read the words that are in the morning program to refresh your mind. If you would, please stand in body or in spirit for our chalice lighting and our spoken affirmation. Dorothea Kaufmann, from the Unitarian Religious Community of Free Faith in Germany, brings us this morning's words. Shining colors to my eye, warmth to my skin, inspiration to my soul. In this unity of creative sparks and sparkling creation of life unfolds. Let us open our senses to the light within and around us and send it out with shining examples. My hands are cold. Shining examples of however you want to finish the sentence, friends. Join me in our spoken affirmation. The words are in the program. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and freedom, and to help one another. Please be seated. Opening thought. Stuff that maybe out there you'd like to be interested in, because November is National Hospice and Palliative Care Month. Hospice care is a type of health care that focuses on the palliation of a terminally ill patient's pain and symptoms and attends to their emotional and spiritual needs at the end of life. Hospice care prioritizes comfort and quality of life by reducing pain and suffering. It provides an alternative to those therapies that focus on prolonging measures that may be arduous, likely to cause more symptoms, and are not aligned with the person's goals. Palliative care grew out of the hospice movement, which is commonly associated with Cecilia Saunders, who founded a terminally ill hospice in 1967, and Elisabeth Kübler-Ross, who published her work on death and dying in 1969. In 1974, Balfour Mount, a urologist familiar with both Saunders and Kübler-Ross, coined the term palliative care and created the first palliative care ward. And outside the United States, hospice is the building and palliative care goes on inside. But in the United States, they're both kind of combined and are quite similar. In reading part of a study on the negative stigmas that seem to linger and abound regarding palliative care, is a belief that the person is giving up, not fighting to the end. And people who choose palliative care rather than chemotherapy are quitters. Probably those people have not had chemotherapy. I did not know that 1.62 million people used hospice care in 2019 in the United States. And I did not realize that Medicare chipped in $20.9 billion to care for those people, 50% of whom were enrolled in hospice 18 days or less. Only 10% were enrolled more than 266 days. We have one song this morning, and I asked Dan to play each verse separately, and I have sprinkled them through the morning program as it goes through. It's in our hymnal number 364 called. We Laugh, Requie, and I think it's appropriate for this morning.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we sing, we dance our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give. We have our thoughts hearts to receive, and we believe that sharing is an answer.
A very different practices for this morning. A visual prayer, if you might, a brief 8-minute NBC News clip from Brian Williams, which I believe he called Not a Better Way of Dying, but Something Else, and maybe he will say it.
Our next report here is one of those things a lot of American families should see because it's about a moment in life all families face. Tonight, you'll see something remarkable going on at a hospital in Wisconsin that has developed a humane and life-affirming way to face what we all eventually face, and that is the end of life. Just as remarkable, as you'll see, are the families who allowed Harry Smith to join them in the conversation.
People come to the emergency room to have their lives saved.
Resuscitation complete. Good.
But as Americans live longer and longer, the emergency room is not the best place to begin a conversation about how you want to live the rest of your life, or even how you want to die.
Do you know where you are?
Tough choices about which treatments and how much treatment become a guessing game, often powered by guilt. Palliative care specialist Carrie Lapham.
One family member may say, no, we need to do this. We have to do everything. And another family member that is saying, we just have to make her comfortable.
But that disagreement rarely happens in what might just be the best place to die in America, La Crosse, Wisconsin, home to Gunderson Lutheran Hospital. Here, an astounding 96% of the patients have a game plan for life and death. It's called an Advance Directive. It starts with a very tough, very honest meeting they call Next Steps.
Tell me what you know about Paul's condition.
He's not going to get better. And we know that.
Paul, what do you hope for with your current plan of care?
Give me as much time as I can get. But keep me comfortable.
Paul and Jean Pearson have been married 21 years, a second marriage for both. Together, they have 6 children. He's a 73-year-old retired architect. She was an interior designer. This is what real love and devotion looks like.
If you were having a good day, what would that day be like?
I'd probably be fishing.
You'd be fishing.
And she'd be with me. She's more important to me than anything.
Paul Pearson has inoperable lung cancer. He and Jean don't want there to be any doubt about how he wants to live out the rest of his life.
This discussion.
So in this meeting, run by Jackie Cartman, a nurse practitioner, Paul and Jean faced their decisions and fears head on. We were there to witness the process, which is as emotional as it is profound.
Paul, what worries you about your illness? What fears do you have?
Breathing is going to be a problem. And probably having to go into a nursing home.
And what about going to a nursing home?
It's being stuck there. I don't want to be a burden to her.
Paul is emphatic. He doesn't want to linger or suffer, and he is not afraid to say so by refusing treatment.
What I'm going to do now is read through these situations. If I have a serious complication from my cancer or treatment for my cancer, so that I was facing a prolonged hospital stay and my chance of living through the complication was low. For example, only 5 out of 100 patients would live.
I would deny treatment.
It was expected that I would never either walk or talk or both, and I would require 24-hour nursing care.
And it would be the same answer.
It was expected that I would never know who I was or who I was with.
Same thing.
And I'm in agreement with
Looking ahead to the end of life is a journey that takes no small amount of courage, and what happens in this meeting is as important for Jean as it is for Paul.
And the thought of losing him terrifies me.
This is really a gift that you're giving to your family, because at some point, if they're needing to make a decision, they can go back to this and say, yes, this is hard, this is difficult, but this is what Mom or this is what Dad really wanted.
Take a deep breath for me.
One of the things they've learned here is all this talking about how you want to die, in many cases, helps people live longer, and incredibly enough, costs less. At Gunderson, patients in the last 6 months of life spent half as many days in the hospital as the national average. Bud Hammis has a PhD in philosophy from Notre Dame. He led the Gunderson team that came up with this better way to die.
When we talk with patients who are getting sicker over time, and they tell us, I've reached a point where I know there isn't much more, I'd like you to keep me comfortable. The cost of care goes down because we're not taking them back to the hospital and doing all these expensive things they don't want.
Some people will see this, though, and say, it looks like they're trying to talk people out of care.
That's not the philosophy. We really want to understand the patient's perspective. We want to understand the patient's values.
And planning ahead has another benefit: peace. When it's time to go, there is little rancor or remorse.
Hello, Eva.
While we were at Gunderson, we met the Foote family. Just the week before, 94-year-old Eva Foote was at a local fair.
I know that what you wanted for her is for her to be comfortable.
But severe stomach pain brought her to the emergency room. Eva had a life-threatening blood clot in her intestine. The Footes, like so many others here, had an advance directive, which meant they had a roadmap which led them to forego surgery, because doctors found Eva's chances of regaining anything close to her former health were next to none. Your parents let you know ahead of time what they wanted to do.
Yes. Knowing ahead of time, it takes a load off the family.
2 days later, Eva passed away peacefully, her wishes honored. For Paul Pearson's children, the plan was tough to take at first, but now that they know what he wants, they have accepted it.
You know, it does put everybody at ease.
To know that there is this plan in place.
Yeah, it really does. All of us can be prepared for each step as it comes.
The Pearsons don't feel like victims of their circumstances. In fact, just the opposite. The process has helped Paul decide how he wants to live the rest of his life. On the schedule, more fishing and historical reenactments. Jean and Paul have been going for years, and now is not the time to stop. How helpful is it to have these conversations, to go through the scenarios ahead of time?
This gives us that advantage that we don't have to be second guessing. What should I do? We've already made those decisions. And they're hard decisions, but we're okay with them.
Our thanks to Harry Smith, but also to Paul and Jean Pearson, who we happen to know are watching our broadcast at home tonight. They allowed us to join in their life-changing conversation. Thank you on our behalf for sharing your bravery.
Let's sit for a moment in stillness.
Our lives are full of wonder and our time is very brief. The death of one among us fills us all with pain and grief. But as we live, so shall we die, and when our lives are done, the memories we shared with friends, they will linger on and on. And we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow. We have the gift to believe that peace within our living is an answer.
Who owns your body? Any idea? Sounds like kind of a dumb question, but really, do we own our own bodies? Of course we do. It's mine, my fingers, my toes, my head, my nose. Well, friends, that's not quite totally accurate. The legal definition of ownership is three things: something you have purchased or have been given legally, and having it, you can add to it, subtract from it, burn it down, knock it up, whatever. And you can give it to someone else or you can sell it. Our bodies do not fit the legal definition of ownership. So in essence, we're squatting in our body. And you know, I really like that concept of kind of squatting in the body. I think it plays into the whole thoughts that I have for today. I have always been out of step with death. The first death in our family was my grandmother when I was 16. And 7 years later, I was in Vietnam with the American Red Cross, and there's not a lot of fun things to do when you're stationed in Vietnam. And so I went to the mortuary because I wanted a tour. I'd never been in a mortuary. In fact, you can't go to a tour in a mortuary. The only job in the U.S. military which is not handled by a member of the military is a mortician. Well, he let me have a tour. And I found it fascinating. I don't know why. It wasn't grim or unpleasant or yuck. And in college, I was an orderly. And I remember getting called to a ward, and they said, "Oh, death in bed 4, would you prepare him for the morgue?" And I went white, and the nurse put her arm over my shoulder and said, "Come, I'll show you." It's a specific process that you go through. And then it takes 2 people to take a body to the morgue legally. And so another orderly went with me. And the morgue was on the 4th floor, and you took of an old building, and you took the freight elevator, and you could see through. And it was late at night, and the morgue light was on. And I was more than just a little freaked out, I will tell you, going through that process. Well, flash forward 40 years, and I've been involved in many people's deaths, at bedside, immediately after, sitting while it happened. And in fact, in one case of a dear friend, I was the one who turned off the ventilator. So I have this pleasant feeling about death. But birth is this wonderful, happy time. It's all pink and blue. And why isn't death equally a happy time? Why is it shrouded in black and so somber music and low lighting and everyone with their head down? And I think for me, the reason is birth and death are very natural. I think everyone does it. It's not death that I think people spend time wandering and being perplexed. I think it's dying. I think it's a process of getting to the last act of the last scene in the last play of life. And I will disagree with Dale and Thomas. Do not go gently into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at the close of day. Rage, raise against the dying of the light. So this morning I want to kind of look at death and dying. My family, dying was done via dementia. My mom died at 89, my dad was 85. Dad's name was strong, but Ma was the stronger one. My 3 siblings who have died, all died younger than our parents. My sister at 84, my brother at 77, my other brother at 72. And my sister Barb, who still lives, has advanced Alzheimer's and hasn't spoken or walked in a number of years. 6 years my parents were in nursing homes. My mom just slowly let go of cognitive processes, how to walk, how to talk. Dad was a scientist, and he got angry. In going through his papers, I found a letter that he was either in the process of writing or forgot to mail. But he was talking about Alzheimer's, which he felt he had, and the amino acids. My dad was a biochemist who did some exceptional work that got him nominated for not 1 but 2 Nobel Peace Prizes. And he was deep into talking about all this chemistry I didn't understand. But at the end, he said that maybe it would help people like me. And I thought he knew he was going through it. My mom's last lucid sentence to me was, "Douglas, I want to die." And she lived another several years. We warehouse our Homo sapien structure too long, I think. I love the story of the Eskimo that sits on an ice pack and floats out into the sea to end it. Something nice about that. So, as I say, death is fine, but dying is a major focus. I remember he told me once he never wanted to end up like his dad, who was a medical doctor. But when Dad had the desire to terminate his life, he didn't have the will. When he had the will, he didn't have the desire. And when clearly he would have had the desire if he was lucid, he didn't have the ability to carry it out because he would have forgotten. I'm changing. I feel it and I know what's happening. I'm getting more forgetful. And people tell me, yeah, we all forget where the keys are. But when you pick up this strange pile of metal and you hold it in your hand and you say, "What in the hell is this?" And it's your keys and you do not know what they are. Those moments that I've had in the last 2 years tell me things are changing for me. When my sister Barbie began changing, she called me and we talked about it, and she said, "Now don't tell Paulie and Eric. No, they can never know." Well, of course they know. You all know. You can see the mistakes I make, the things that, oops. Like this morning, I wanted to look up something in last Wednesday's Wednesday update. I never sent one. And no one told me. Now, I am going to hope that you all knew there was no Wednesday update, which would say that you read them. And I'm going to hope springs eternal. But I want to ask that you tell me. I want to know when I've gone, oops, because if I don't know it, I can't process it, and I get anxious, and no one ever sees me when I'm anxious, and that's a very good thing. When I know I can take steps to mitigate, I too don't want to end up like my parents. So enter the conversation, Advance Directives, what we saw from that wonderful clip. If you're going to have advance directives, the first thing you got to do is to find someone a generation younger than you are, or 2 generations. Someone you trust implicitly, someone who you know will do. A lot of people, although to interrupt myself, 2/3 of Americans do not have any sort of advance directive. Over 50% of Americans don't even have a will. But you find the person, and often it's a relative, a child, but sometimes that may not be the best approach to take. I can think of recent situations I've been involved with where having the family involved was probably not the best decision the parent had made. I got a form and I looked at it, and there were very probing questions. We heard a couple of them, and I took it very seriously. I poured out all my hopes, my fears, the truth, everything. And when I was done, I really felt better. I felt kind of, oh, good, this is a good beginning step. But then I had to think, who am I going to ask? Well, I have 2 nephews, my sister's kids, Paul and Eric. They're 38 and 40. Perfect, right age, right mindset. But they have spent the last 7 years caring for my sister. And I decided it would just be unfair to ask them to repeat all of that, perhaps, with me. So I didn't ask them. Instead, I have a friend who I've known for about 45 years, and I see him every time I go to Wisconsin because he lives in St. Louis, and we talk about everything. And I was visiting him a couple years ago, and we were sitting at breakfast, and I went, bingo, in my mind. I know exactly who I'm going to ask. So I asked Greg to be my advocate, power of attorney, executor of my will, all of the paperwork which I dumped on him. And he returned it because I hadn't signed it. Good, that's why you have someone of a younger generation. He drove down from St. Louis, and we went to CJ's. Of course, it was closed, but we had quinoa salad to go. Jim introduced me to the salads. It's really good. And we sat at the dining room table and went through the document. And oh, Lordy, did he have questions. And it was a tough conversation for both of us. Tough, beautiful tough, not boring tough. And we cried, and we said yes and no, and we laughed, and we joked, and we really had a good time. And after Craig left, the sense of settlement that I had was absolutely incredible. It was like this weird thing had been lifted off my soul. I still forget stuff, and that part of my life is going to go on. I know maybe I won't develop full dementia of some kind, but I want to be better prepared. And while I was thinking about this morning, I hit upon this interesting thought. If you haven't, I'm not going to ask if you've done advance directives or not. That's not any of my business. I'll glare at you if you haven't, but I don't want to do that. I thought, Greg, what was it like for you when I asked you to take on this task? And I asked that to myself. And I thought, I wonder if I can ask that question of Greg. And I did. I called him up and I asked him, would you, what was it? Why is it moving? What was, oh, there's no sticker on the bottom. What was it like for you to do this? And I asked him if he would talk to all of you about it. And he said that he would. He still lives in St. Louis, but yesterday we did a Zoom. And this is Greg's answer to why he said yes for my invitation to do this for me.
Hi, my name is Greg Johnston. I'm grateful to be with you this morning to share my experience in accepting Doug's 5 wishes. Doug and I met in 1973. I was 13 years old. I was in the youth group at the Unitarian Church in St. Louis, Missouri, Elliott Chapel. Doug was the advisor for the youth group. That was a long time ago. I'm not 13 anymore. I'm 61 years old. And so Doug and I have been friends for a very long time. Doug became, in junior high school, middle school, a role model for me. And we kept our relationship going through high school. And Doug went on to Star King and became a Unitarian minister. I had the pleasure of keeping my relationship active with Doug. He would come back to St. Louis and visit. I went to California and visited him there. I had the honor of speaking at Doug's ordination. Doug gave me the honor of performing my wedding ceremony. Doug was also there for me a few years after that, 30 years ago when my brother passed away, and was very helpful getting me through that. I stayed in touch with Doug as I became a family person, a father, and a business owner. As you all know, Doug's very funny and smart, and very high on the verbal communication. I've always enjoyed our relationship, our friendship very much. We lost touch for a while. We got back together and visited. He knows me well, and he knows my faults. I know him. I know that he's human, and I've come to know some of his shortcomings. And that's a true part of a friendship and a relationship. To be asked by an old friend to be a role model and to help him in this aspect of his affairs is an honor, and one I take seriously. He has been meaningful to me since I was 13 years old, and now I know too that I've been meaningful in his life. So I'm going to speak a little bit about the document itself. It's kind of divided into 2 parts for me. The beginning part, question 1 and 2, is about the legal stuff. And then 3, 4, and 5, the 3 final wishes, are more the human stuff, the humane parts, the touchy-feely stuff. Number 1 talks about who, and that's the me, and I'm honored to be that person for Doug. It's the legal stuff, the power of attorney. It deals with life support and things like that. Doug, in his writings, he's very specific about his wishes. He discusses his family history as context for his thoughts and concerns. Life support, he says, is torture. It's inhumane and it's cruel. That's Doug, is pretty clear. In fact, he adds, I will bloody well haunt anyone who goes against my wishes here. Therefore, as you can imagine, I plan on adhering to Doug's wishes and make sure that he is not kept on life support. Or human part, as I said. Questions 3 and 4 deal with how do you want to be kept comfortable in the end of your life, and how do you want to be treated? There's a section that I found humorous where it talks about hallucinations could happen. And Doug writes in his section, yeah, that's just fine. It might be fun to see teddy bears dancing on the ceiling. Talks about, do you want to be kept warm? Do you want to be bathed? And Doug adds in his own beautiful words, yes, warm blankies sound good. Doug is a UU. And of course, the next question was kind of fun, excuse me, because it said, do you want others to pray for you? And Doug reminds us that while there are some Unitarians who pray, there are many who are more prone to discuss than pray. And he said he thinks it would be a good idea to have some UUs around, maybe discussing or questioning or debating or gossiping about current events or things going on in the UU faith. He says, please do that even if you think I'm out of it. Doug's final section here, he talks about not wanting to be left alone. It's profound and it's beautiful. Doug has had the honor of being with others as they've transitioned from this life. He knows how important that was and is. He wants to have others have that honor to be with him. The process ends with several questions about how you want to be remembered. I think this is a wonderful aspect. It forces one to reflect on their life, to write down what's important, to have others know what they think. Doug writes, I do not fear death. By putting those words down on paper, Doug gives all of us a gift. There's some very personal things that Doug adds in this section that I'll not share today, but they are a gift to me and they will be a gift to many others. He reflects on his life and shares his thoughts. And again, I think that that's a gift for those in his life. Being the person he is, he left us with a beautiful concept I do want to share. One's life, he says, should be remembered in its sum, the sum of the good we have offered others. That's how we should be remembered, and that's how we live on. As I said earlier, it brought me great joy to read the words that he wrote. It did not bring me sorrow or pain. The love and affection I have for him will bolster me in the actions that I'll be asked to take when the time comes. I know Doug, I know him well. I love him and I respect him. I want you to know that, again, for me, being the recipient of the 5 wishes is one of the greatest forms of service one can provide to another. I will move mountains to make sure that Doug's wishes are exactly given the way he wants them to be. Being the recipient of Doug's final wishes is one of the greatest forms of service I can provide him. Agreeing to do this for someone you love, what they cannot do for themselves, is indeed one of the greatest acts of love one can provide. Doing these things for Doug will be one of the greatest acts of love I can ever give him. Thanks.
I sure chose the right guy. But I got to be truthful. I haven't still signed the documents, but in our conversation yesterday, he's given me 72 hours and he's coming back if I don't have him signed. And he will. He would. I'm slipping away, and I know I am. And I don't want to hide it. I don't want to feel shame or fear or worry. And I chose this morning to not have a script so that I could be more involved. I've lost my wallet again. I lost it a month or 2 ago and had to replace everything. I'm on day 5. Maybe it will show up. Oh, I found the first wallet after everything was replaced on the dining room table. And that's significant in that I can look right at the candle saying, where is that bloody candle? And literally not see it. This happens all the time. And I decided that the best way to deal with it is to tell everyone. I went to, when I didn't see the Wednesday e-news, I went to the app to see what the service was today, in case I hadn't updated it. It still is listing the credo service of a month ago. Dear me. There are ways, and I'm learning how to do ways of checking myself, new habits that other people have invented that those of us going through it can help. But the end is self-deliverance is a gift, my friends. Since it's the 5th quarter of my life, the idea of self-deliverance, which is now not illegal in any state, but anyone who gives assistance is can be tried for murder. After we finished our kiwa salad and hugged and cried a bit, I could not thank him for the gift he had given me. I couldn't get the words out. So when he left, I did what so popular nowadays, I sent him a text message. You can fall in love, fall out of love, get hired, get fired. Probably you can tell the world you died in a text message. And so what I said was, Greg, I couldn't find the words to let you know what you have done for me. And then I realized what I need to tell you. There will be a day in your future when you will look for your Craig and ask that person to do what I have asked you to do. On that day, remember the kiwa salad, think of me, and you will then know how incredibly thankful I am for what you're doing for me today. I don't know what my future will be, and none of us know what they will be. I don't know if any of this had any help or meaningful for you, but in the morning program, I've listed some references. I chose to use something called My 5 Wishes. And as I said earlier, when I had finished it, and, well, I had walked the dog, of course, but got back, and I sat down and I read it. I said, holy shit, this stuff is really good. And I did it all in one sitting. I didn't edit it, I didn't go back with it, I just spilled it out. And I would suggest that approach if you choose to do it. So to Dylan Thomas, no, I want to go gently into that good night. The day will come, I will be gone, and friends, it will be good. Amen, friends. Amen. Sometimes it's a strange place to put the offering, but it does come here, and this is our custom. Where would we be as a community? Where could people gather to explore the deep issues of their lives, like dying and death, without the words catching in their throats? It is here, friends. And you're invited to give your support via the home screen or the mobile app, or by bringing your gifts to the table.
We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all this waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we have found. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a joy being together. And in our search search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question truly is an answer.
There's one more verse, isn't there, Dan?
There is.
I'm going to do the parting thought, and then let's do the last verse instead of doing it now.
Okay. Say again, please.
I'm going to do the parting thought, and then before we extinguish the chalice, we'll listen to the last verse.
Okay.
We have reached the end of this time for the gathering of memory and for letting the imagination play with future possibilities. We have enjoyed magic moments and edified each other. Shall it be concluded then? Or will this adventure now commence, continue? Our separate paths convening, meeting, merging in an unending quest for love more perfect. The joyous struggle for meaning more sufficient and life more abundant. Is this ending to be an ending, or merely prelude to new, more glorious beginnings? I pose the question. In your hearts lies the answers.
We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all this waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found the joy being together. And in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question truly is an answer.
I invite you to stand in body or spirit while we extinguish the flame. The words are in the morning program. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace, friends.